When it comes to healing the crew and holding the ethical line, no one does it quite like Starfleet's chief medical officers. From McCoy's grumpy compassion to Crusher's steady brilliance, Bashir's evolution, the Doctor's sarcastic precision, and Phlox's empathy, each brought a unique bedside manner to their crews. In this live stream, we're putting these legendary medics under the microscope to explore what made them vital to their crews and unforgettable to their fans. The real question is, which Starfleet Doctor would you trust with your life on the final frontier? Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things sci-fi. And today we are going to be talking about who is the absolute best Doctor in Starfleet, part 1. So in this conversation, we're going to focus on all the shows from TOS up to Enterprise. Next week, we'll do part 2 with some of the new Trek. But before we get started with any of that, I want to welcome my esteemed guests and co-hosts for today's conversation. Win Grace from the YouTube channel, Win Grace Project, and Dustin from the YouTube channel, Best of Trek. Welcome.
Good afternoon, evening, good morning, wherever you're watching from. Hope you're having a good one.
And good night.
I was waiting for that one.
Bye.
Thanks for coming, everyone. See you next week. Hello to everybody who is in the chat, who's watching live. Hello to everybody who's watching on the replay. For those on the replay, there are timestamps below, so you can jump ahead at any time. But let's get started with the very first Doctor on the list, and that's none other than Dr. McCoy, also known as Bones. These are the 3 categories that I, along with my BFF ChatGPT, decided could be good qualities for a doctor. Now, of course, there were things like empathetic, there were things like ethical, and there were things, things that I would think everybody who we admire on any of the shows would be, regardless of their rank. But I thought these 3 were good for like doctory things and Starfleet doctors. So the first is being decisive under pressure, being able to make quick life or death decisions in a crisis. So I think a lot of times we see captains, or at least one of my favorite examples is Picard, when there's some kind of like crazy thing going on and he's like options, and they all give options and he's like, all right, B or whatever. Doctors don't have that kind of luxury. Like, they need to just make choices. And so one of the things I put here is how quickly or how often or how easily do they do that? And how often do they kind of tiptoe or ask permission? The second one is blunt honesty, meaning doesn't mean they have to be rude, but it does mean they always have to tell the truth, and they shouldn't sugarcoat things. So if like a patient's not going to make it, they should be like, you're not going to make it. They shouldn't be like, well, I mean, we could always find something. And then the third category is caring. I guess that's where kind of the empathy goes. And I think a good doctor should deeply care about their crew's well-being. Now, how they show that caring may be different from doctor to doctor, but they should actually care, like really care about their patient's well-being, not necessarily about their own kind of statue or how amazing they seem or whatever, like, or how annoying it is to have patients. They should really care that the crew is nice and healthy. So with that kind of laid out, let's talk about McCoy. Where does he stack up on these things? Josh, do you want to go first?
Sure. So obviously what jumps out to me pretty straight away is the blunt honesty thing for him. Definitely siding on the side of blunt, perhaps more so than even required, but definitely he's definitely not anybody to sugarcoat anything, really. Now, whether or not it's honesty that's helpful, I suppose that's another side. So the caring, again, going along with the blunt honesty, he's caring to the point of he wants to do what's right for his patient, but not necessarily what's right for their mental state of mind or their emotional well-being, I suppose. But you definitely see even people that really aren't his patients, he wants to help. I know we're not supposed to really go to the movies, but I'm thinking specifically of Star Trek 4 when they're back in the 1980s and he sees somebody that's going to be getting a kidney transplant. He's like, my God. So he just gives this random woman temporal doctrine or whatever, be damned, a miracle future cure because he just can't stand seeing somebody, having to go through something when he has the means to fix it. So I think both of those he's pretty good with. And then decisive under pressure, whether or not it's the right decision, I think he does set his mind to something pretty well.
Did he show that kind of the concern he had about the kidney transplant patient? Did he show that level of concern in the shows as well, or was that kind of an evolution of his character?
He's very he's very into the, damn it, I'm a doctor, I need to help this person. So he's definitely
a Doctors Without Borders.
He's definitely into trying to do the medical thing to help people at the detriment of what he actually might be doing to the person's psyche, I guess you could say. He just wants to cure the body and help the person, I suppose. Oh,
that's interesting. So more the body than the mind, which tracks for 1960s up until pretty much 2020. That's when people started being like, oh man, we're trapped inside, mental health.
He'll give you some liquor to take care of that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Before it was like, have a little bit of brandy, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Dustin, thoughts?
Yeah, blunt honesty, if we're like putting this on a scale, he is absolutely the most blunt doctor out of all of them, not just today, but the ones we'll get into next week. So that's just an easy one. He has no problem telling you exactly what he thinks at any given time, be it medical or command advice or life advice. A thing that I hadn't really noticed until more recently in watching like TOS and especially the movies, he is James T. Kirk's conscience. So he's there, like he's the little angel and sometimes the little devil just whispering in his ear. He's blunt honesty, 5 out of 5. Decisive under pressure. Yeah, he's probably a little less so sometimes because he really, yeah, you have to get into the movies and like Star Trek 5, but where he like doubted himself about easing his father's pain, and then a cure was developed right after he like took him off life support or whatever it was that he did to just, let him go because he had a terminal illness. So, but even then he's like, yes, he's very decisive as a whole. Pretty good. There might be somebody better. Caring, I think you have to pack like bedside manner of a medical officer in there. So a little less so. He's probably middle of the pack, maybe lower middle of the pack on the caring. I don't think he doesn't care. Like Josh said, like he will, timeline be damned, give somebody a cure for something. But bedside manner and things aside, maybe like a 2.5 or 3 out of 5 or something.
Yeah, I kind of feel like decisive under pressure. Each doctor is probably going to be pretty decisive under pressure. And I feel like blunt honesty and caring are kind of at odds. So that's where I see it kind of evening out the playing field. I think it was on one of your Monday live streams, Dustin, where you said something, you or somebody said something about McCoy and Spock, or maybe it's on one of my live streams, where McCoy and Spock needed to be there for Kirk to be the little shoulder angel and devil. Like they were the ones who kind of like helped him decide things. So I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that was the play. In addition, I think that this became the mold for future doctors, right? Like they need to have the captain's ear and they need to be somebody's conscience somewhere on the ship, which, I'm not mad at. Okay, hold on a second. I want to get some of these comments up here. It feels like years since I've been doing these comments and doing all these buttons, and it's been like a week. Nadia says, I love McCoy, especially since the time he gave the elderly lady a pill that grew her a new kidney in ST4. I love that. Ooh, a pill for a new kidney. That sounds amazing. PS2 Chipper says, McCoy was always quick on his feet, so decisive under pressure. Nadia says, dialysis? What is this, the Dark Ages? Hands her the pill. Here, dear, take this and call me in the morning. I love that. And I would totally do that, by the way, as well. Like there was there's a show, what's it called? Peripheral. So good. Oh my gosh, so good. But it got canceled after one season. But you can watch that one season on Prime and it's really good. But the mom in that show is really sick. And then the daughter has the opportunity to get like future medicine that can heal her. And me and my podcast co-host had this whole discussion on like, would you use that future medicine to heal your mom? Because the brother, was like, don't give her random medicine from random future people. And she was like, but mama could use it. And both of us were just like, absolutely, we would do it. Absolutely, we would do it. We're not even asking permission from anyone. We're slipping mama the medicine in her mashed potatoes 100%. So this pill that grows the kidney, absolutely. I'd take it and I'd give it. Yep. Wellington Smith says, a cure, it still makes me cry. Oh, I love that.
For sure. Best scene in that entire movie. might be the best McCoy scene in general as far as emotional goes.
Oh, I don't know. Just like I mentioned before, the whole thing with his dad, that's like the most emotional thing.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, the dad scene.
Okay.
In 5. Yeah.
Okay, so let us know in the comments your thoughts on McCoy if you have not done so already. And let's move on to the second Doctor on the list, Beverly Crusher, who I was today years old when I learned that Dustin does not care for Beverly Crusher. So here are the 3 categories: decisive under pressure, blunt honesty, and caring. Thoughts? Do you want to start on this one, Dustin?
Yeah, I do, because it's not that I don't care for Beverly Crusher. I just don't think we see enough of her doing great medicine. I mean, over 7 seasons, she does so much less waving lights over people for a major part of the plot than she's like. Her good points are when she's in command. She's a good commander and Kira type. She's, for a doctor that is always advocating for like the life of somebody throughout the series, she also will throw down with no issues. So I think she's great in that regard, but we haven't seen enough of her as a doctor, considering the amount of time movies, Picard, 7 seasons of TNG, 6 seasons of TNG.
And one where she was there in spirit.
So decisive under pressure, fine, I guess, because again, we don't have much. So like, yeah, sure, like 2.5, 3 out of 5, fine. Blunt honesty, I mean, she told Picard about his potential Ironic syndrome in season 7, but I don't recall any other time where she like, I guess she is bluntly honest, because she's one of those people in the like staff briefings that's constantly speaking up for other people. So I don't think she's as blunt and honest as McCoy, but really close, like a 4 out of 5. Caring, I think she is actually very high on that scale, like a 4.5 or a 5.
Go ahead, Josh.
So yeah, that Dustin made a great point about she's more, and we actually get to see this in the possible future of All Good Things. Like she actually became a captain of her own medical ship. That seems to be when they get out of their way in the show and give her stories, which are few and far between. A lot of them are very, very tangentially related to actual medical stuff. Like, what is it? Remember Me? Is that the one where she gets trapped in the bubble universe? She uses her deductive reasoning. It's a great episode, but she's logicking things out and, coming to realizations.
Her way out.
Yeah, just based on like things she picked up from her son and knows about the universe. And then, what was the other one I was thinking of? It completely left my mind. Oh, the one where they were developing the solar shield or something. Yeah, and she's. She's using medical things here, but it's more of her deductive reasoning and her kind of investigating and figuring out there's something wrong. So she's definitely more of a hands-on, can evolve outside of the medical field doctor, which is kind of interesting because she was head of Starfleet Medical for a while. But as far as the blunt honesty goes, she does have the honesty, but I feel like the blunt here is from McCoy is replaced more with that bedside manner he doesn't really have. She really has that softer touch when she needs it. Like I've said before in a couple of streams, I used to imagine when I was a kid, like there was an accident and I wake up aboard the Enterprise D and they're like, oh, there's been a problem and you're in the future now on the ship. So like she was the one I always imagined like being caring enough to like deal with that situation. If I woke up on the original Enterprise with McCoy there, I don't know if I'd want to be in that situation. So she definitely has a warm, probably the motherly thing from actually being a mother. So I would feel more comfortable in her care, but I don't know if I would feel as medically if she did as much risky medical stuff as some of the other doctors, if it was a really life-threatening thing. And then what's
and that is a bad thing?
No, it's
You're
not
saying she
necessarily a
didn't take
bad
enough
thing.
risk?
Like, I do think that she is a good doctor at the end of the day, but we actually see in the one episode where Worf breaks his back from the
Ethics.
scourge of the blue barrels, that she is caring for him in this, but she doesn't want to put his life on the line for an experimental surgery. And I think some of the other doctors on this list would be much more willing to cross that line than she was.
Especially in that situation where Worf was literally going to end himself, or you can try this thing, so you might as well try it.
So I think she's more tempered with the emotionality of things and maybe more of the ethics than some of the other doctors, but we'll get to them as they come. So I do think she does have all of these things, but her blunt honesty is definitely tempered, and her decision-making under pressure is a lot less medically focused, at least from what we've seen from the shows. And then in the movies, she does nothing medical. So
in the movies, they don't do anything about anything. Most of them, they just stand there and go, "That's amazing, Captain."
But Crusher in particular, tell me one thing in those 4 movies that you can remember her doing.
Her boobs were very firm.
She was the one who confirmed that Shinzon was actually Picard's clone. Or whatever.
All right, that's
okay.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's
pretty sure that was her.
That is something medical, even. Yes.
Granted, the transporter probably could have done that, but I'm pretty sure she did it. So
she got pushed in the water.
One medical thing she did. Yeah, I had so many thoughts. If you're in the away team, type in : barrel : into the comments to commemorate Worf's spine. Rest in peace, Worf's spine. So, this is really interesting. You guys are bringing up points that I hadn't totally thought about. The fact that her most interesting episodes are not her doing medical things or medically interesting things. Some of her best episodes are her doing totally other things.
When she's fighting the Borg at the end of the Rogue Borg in the end of season 6 into season 7. Descent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah. She takes charge of the ship in Arsenal of Freedom. No, she doesn't. She falls down a cave and breaks her leg. Just kidding. Yeah. That was a different thing. I don't know. I love Beverly Crusher, of course. I think she's an amazing character for the show and couldn't imagine it without her, except for season 2 where we had to. I think she does make very good decisions under pressure. And I agree with Dustin that she's more of the commandy type. Like, she is good in command, and the decisions she makes kind of come from that level of like, what's best for the ship, what's best for the patient, what's best overall. Like, she's amazing at triage. And I think it's a lot more of a global picture. And I also agree with Dustin saying she's willing to fight for people like Hugh in Borg, right? She was the one who was like, you can't just end this guy because you don't like Borg, like, come on. And they're just like, they're not human and they don't matter and all these other things. And she's like, well, that's super convenient, but I have an oath of do no harm. So this is some nonsense. So she was willing to push back on everybody for that one person. So she kind of has both. She has that global big picture. Like, if we got to send some people off the ship to their doom to save the rest of the ship, that's what we're going to do. But she can also care about the individuals. I'm also thinking of the episode Symbiosis, which is one of my favorite episodes in season 1, where there's the planet of people who seem like they're sick, and then the planet of people who seem like they have medicine, but it turns out that the sick people are really drug addicts and the people with medicine are really drug dealers. And she discovers it, and she's just like, we need to tell everybody the truth. Like, we can give them another medicine so they don't have to suffer through withdrawal pains and all these other things. So even in that, she's like really wanting to do what's best for everybody. So I'll give her high marks in that. I think for blunt honesty, I totally agree with Josh. Like, she is honest and she tells people the truth. Like she told Worf, you're not going to walk again, or maybe you will, but it's going to be hard. It's going to take lots of physical therapy. It's going to suck. She told him the truth, but not in a mean way. And I think as far as bedside manner, I would much rather have a doctor who would tell me hard news in a nice way. You're like, even if it's news that you don't want to hear, don't tell me the news in a way that's like even more upsetting. And I'll give you an example. I was sick a few years ago, really, really sick. To this day, I still don't know what it was, but I was sick to the point where I was going to the doctor like every other day. The symptoms kept getting worse. At one point, I lost my hearing. At one point, I lost my voice. Like all this stuff was going on. Nobody could figure out what was going on. But one of the many specialists I went to see was an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And he was like, oh, my tonsils are like swollen, but they always have been, apparently. You know, they're swollen so much that like, it doesn't look like there's any air that can go through my windpipe. So he saw this on the scan and called me over the weekend and was like, oh my gosh, we need to get you into the hospital. Like, can you even breathe? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good. And he's like, okay, we need to get you in and we need to biopsy it and see what's going on. So I come in to do the biopsy and he's like, you know, we really need to run some tests because it could be cancer. I was like, you haven't done a test yet, dude. Don't start with it could be cancer. Can you run a test? Can you take a blood sample? Like, can you do some work before you give me a diagnosis? It was just like so outlandish. And it wasn't, thank God, but it could have been. But that was not the way to deliver that news. The way to deliver it would have been, let's go ahead and run some tests to see what's going on here. That's what you should have said. And then if you run said tests, then you have some kind of diagnosis or some kind of next steps. But I remember just thinking like, wow, who does that? This person is a doctor who does that, right? And I don't think it wasn't mean like McCoy, but it was kind of like thoughtless, more like The Doctor season 1 would just be like, yeah, could be cancer. Anyways, next, you know, you're just like, what the heck? So anyways, caring, yes, like she is absolutely caring. You feel it through her. She feels very motherly. Even if it's patients she doesn't really like, she's going to do her best. Yeah. So Nadia says, it makes you wonder, shouldn't someone develop one of those pills to grow a new Klingon spine? I could just have one of those pills to grow like a new human kidney. Like I'm happy with the original idea. There's some upset in the chat about Dustin not liking Beverly Crusher, but now we've cleared that up. Okay, PS2 Chipper agrees that the best McCoy scene was the dad scene, and that Dr. Crusher was the best mom doctor. Wasn't she the only mom doctor? Nadia says she's my favorite. She's versatile. She's not only a good doctor, but she's also a commander. Wellington Smith says maybe not blunt honesty, but definitely the conscience of the crew, advocating against the Prime Directive, like when dealing with the drug planet. Yep, just talk about that drug planet. Yep, totally true. She's like Prime Directive, Schmime Directive, which is what they all do. I feel Crusher was shoehorned into the series to be a plot device to explain Wesley. Probably, and to show family on the Enterprise. Not enough stories that warrant her position medically. That's fair. I would say Wesley being on the show was a really important thing for Gene Roddenberry. But I never really felt like that was showing families on the ship. Because, like, how many times did we see Beverly and Wesley ever together? Almost, like, very rarely did we ever see them together in their quarters. Maybe twice, like once in season 1 and once in season 7. They don't really hang out together. So it's not like we saw a lot of mothering, or like we saw more in the episode The Child with Deanna Troy's lightning baby than we saw, I think, in all 7 seasons with Beverly and Wesley. But
we see them in their quarters in season 5 in the game when he comes back and he's the moody teenager and he's like, but ma'am.
When he's on his date and she comes in to try to force him to play the headset.
Yep.
How do we even know that's their quarters? That could be his quarters at this point, for all we know.
He came back to the ship full of open quarters and just stayed with his mom.
And Nadia says, if there's nothing wrong with me, then there must be something wrong with the universe, which is what Beverly Crusher actually says in that episode, which is so wild that anybody would say a sentence like that out of their mouths. If there's nothing wrong with me, it must be the universe. Yes, exactly. Self-possession. Yes. Let's see those barrels in the chat. Beverly's the most talented, versatile doctor, bar none. Look at how she also learned all about Data's physiology. She could work with Geordi to take care of Data. That is actually a good point. And I think only Girardi from Picard is the other doctor who knows stuff about androids as well. But she's like a cyberneticist who knows something about humans as well. So it's like the opposite.
Seems correct.
She was underutilized in the movies. I agree. Like a jack of all trades for plot points. And the only thing I saw her do was in Picard taking over the weapon systems. I don't know. There's a lot of Crusher episodes that I really like. But I think the only one that is medical is Ethics with Worf Spine.
And then she gets supplanted by another doctor anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a medical, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
whole episode is like medical focused. Like that needs to be a Beverly episode because it's medically focused versus something like Sub Rosa, which could have been anyone.
There's a
It's
couple
just
that
weird
come to
that-
mind, but they're not like the one, was it Night Terrors?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a memorable
Where it's like
scene.
a minor plot point.
Yeah, and then there's the one where the kid is in the can't remember
In the
what
bubble?
happened. Yeah, like the little bubble with
Brothers?
the little ant creature.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that one.
That episode with the wait, do you mean the one when the boy was in the bubble and his brother was on the outside, or a different one?
Yeah, where like what they went to a planet and there was some fruit or something his brother gave him that got him super sick.
The fruit is
Yeah.
the clove palm.
Yeah, that episode was all about Data meeting Lore and meeting Noonien Soong. But also there was these brothers on the ship that Beverly was taking care
Yeah.
of.
So it's like her medical things are like the B plot or the C plot.
That was a great episode, and that was like the reason why taking over the ship was a problem, because if the boys don't get the medicine in the next 12 hours, the little boy is gonna die or something. So yeah, it wasn't really a Beverly episode, but there are a lot of Beverly episodes I really like. I'm just throwing that out there. PS2 Chipper says Dr. Crusher always had tact when it came to bedside manner. And Wellington Smith says, I think blunt honesty is overrated. Honesty is enough. So my definition of blunt honesty is like not sugarcoating. So there's you can be honest in a lot of different flavors. You can be honest and be rude and be a jerk. You can be honest and be totally neutral. You can be honest and be really like kind, like overly kind, like to the point where people don't really know what you're exactly saying because you're being too nice with it. You know, like instead of just saying like, oh no, that outfit looks terrible on you. You're like, well, it's so interesting in the colors and the shapes and the designs. Oh my goodness. It's so bright. You're just saying things. You're just saying a lot of things that's like obfuscating the truth. And so I think that's where I'm throwing in blunt. I think honesty that is clear is helpful. Dr. Claire J. Finn is the best space opera doctor. I do not know who that is. Wait, no, who's that?
The Orville. She's the
I was
doctor
going
on
to
the
say, is that
Orville.
Oh,
Dr.
yeah,
Orville?
yeah.
Dr. Finn Medicine.
Yeah, Penny Johnson. Okay. All right. I see what he's
I thought it was a doctor from the Orville, but I couldn't remember her name, and Finn didn't sound familiar at all. Yeah, I really like that show, but I haven't caught up on it in a while. So DJ Magic says new kidneys are fine, but I'll take new knees. Okay, AF Kaplan, we're going to talk about Pulaski next. So hang on to, we got a lot of stuff in the chat about Pulaski. Okay, let's go to Pulaski. That's the next person we're going to talk about. I felt like it was only fair since we did have a whole season with her, and I have such strong, vivid, visceral memories of when Pulaski came on the show. So even though it's sort of like a cameo, like it's one season out of 7, I still feel like she was a presence. Kind of like how people are always mentioning Tasha Yar, and she didn't even finish a season. She didn't even make it a whole season through, but people are always like, but Tasha, as if she was there for like 5 of the 7 seasons. That's like Pulaski. Like she leaves a taste in the mouth. So where do we think she fits under decisive under pressure, blunt honesty, and caring?
So clearly I dislike Pulaski. There's no proof otherwise. I think she's more, I think they purposefully tried to go back when they were replacing Gates McFadden after season 1 and implement a more Bones type character as the Doctor, a more acerbic character. The reason I don't think it worked for the show as well is because, like we were saying earlier, like Dustin pointed out, he's like one of the trio. He was the conscience of Kirk and Spock were kind of like this co-mingled entity, and that wasn't how TNG was working. So we put this character into the show after we've established, not very well necessarily throughout season 1, the entire crew, but we get to know who most of them are. And then we put this character in here who just suddenly starts pulling the racist card on Data, similar to how McCoy was always pulling it on Spock. And there's a visceral dislike for her, but I think that was partially intentional. So I think she is decisive under pressure for the most part. They purposely gave her the more Bones-like blunt honesty. And they purposely gave her a a caring but more of a detached way of caring, kind of, again, similar to how Bones was. So it was kind of like they took all the qualities of Crusher and tried to give us somebody who is the opposite. And by only having her for the one season, we didn't get the benefit of seeing her develop like the rest of the characters developed throughout the show. So we only have this kind of moment in time where she was at her worst possible biases, I guess you could say. So she was all of these things to a certain extent, but whether or not we got enough of any of them to make a true call compared to the other ones, I don't know.
That's fair. We did get 3 seasons of Bones. So did his character evolve and change, or was he pretty much the same at the end of season 3 that he was at the beginning of season 1? Because that might answer this question.
I mean, for the most part, I guess the difference is, for the most part, nobody in TOS grew outside of maybe Spock. In TNG, everybody did grow outside of the characters that we didn't see any more of, like Tasha or Pulaski. So we get to the end of the 7th season and we only get this second season version of Pulaski. And if all of our characters were the second season version of themselves by the end of season 7, like Riker was still such a sanctimonious kind of smug guy in season 2. He had mellowed a little bit, but he was definitely not where he became. So I do like to give her more of a benefit of the doubt. She was starting to grow a little bit, specifically with her relationship with Worf. And she got a little bit closer and more comfortable with the data thing by realizing he was a real person, sort of. And, especially her interaction with Moriarty there, who, when he came back, didn't mention her, but whatever.
Who was so charmed by her for some reason. I was so confused by that. When Moriarty kidnapped her, I was I was like, keep her, just keep her. And my coach was like, no, Picard has to get her back.
I highly agree with that comment AF Kaplan put up about her not having the chemistry with the cast. I really like Pulaski, but she, at least after one season, didn't have that chemistry. If she'd gone more, she might have developed it.
Yeah. I do think they did give her slightly more medically to do in this one season than Crusher got to do in the rest of the show.
Yeah, that is legit, because I'm thinking of the episode Unnatural Selection with the Oldening virus and the super kids. And yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can immediately think of a very good episode where she was doing some serious doctoring. Or when we first see her, it's in The Child, and she's taking care of the super baby that's growing really fast. So just a few episodes that pop to mind with her in them are medically related. And the other thing too that was interesting in reviewing this show for the TNG podcast, I was surprised, and so was my co-host, by how many good episodes have Pulaski and how qualified of a doctor she is. Because all I remember is how much I disliked her. That's all I recalled, was just I can't stand her face, I can't stand her voice, I don't like how she is with people, and I want nothing to do with her. But then I was like, oh, we got to review a whole season. Oh, this is gonna suck. And then The Child, I thought was a really sucks to be Deanna Troi, but that's true every day. But I thought it was an interesting story, and I liked Pulaski in it. I liked her being okay, there's a baby. Well, let's take care of the baby. I just liked how she was, even though I didn't like who she was and some of the things she said. But I liked that she was doing her duty and was not shirking away from it. So I guess we can give her the benefit of the doubt that she only has one season of anything to go on, no movies, nothing else. Everybody else has at least 3. So that's fair. All right, Dustin, thoughts?
So as far as Pulaski, I had a whole thing that I was just thinking, and then you called on me, and I lost it. So I'll just run through the. I was going to
say, do you want me to come back to you when it comes back?
No. So decisive under pressure, 5.52 for these. She's a 5 in decisive under pressure. She will, in a triage situation, just make the calls, and you see her well, the biobed's not working, so make a splint, And that also goes to blunt honesty. She will tell you what she thinks no matter what in any situation, same as Bones. Caring, yeah, she's a 2. She doesn't have the best bedside manner. I'm of the mindset that yes, Pulaski is a better doctor in TNG. Okay, so this is what I was trying to get to. Josh said that everybody in TNG gets growth, and I don't think that's true. Only for one character. I don't think that I don't think Bev got growth at all. I think she's the same character from episode 1 of season 1 to episode 7, All Good Things. But Pulaski gets more growth in 1 season than she got in 6. Because you start with her against Data and like, oh, Data. And what that comes off as to me today is somebody that like just experienced their first couple of LGBTQ people and they just don't know the lingo and how to talk to people. It's not that they're bigots or they're hateful. They just don't understand. And you educate them and then they move on and then they become a better person. And that's what I see in Pulaski.
See, but the education and become a better person, that's the part that I feel like, especially in Unnatural Selection, where Data, she's calling him Data, he says, that's not my name. And she goes, Data, what's the difference? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Like, she totally dismisses his concerns of anything. And then he says, well, one is my name and one is not. And she's like, whatever. So to me, she feels more like, she feels ignorant. I will give you that. She doesn't feel like willfully
At
like
the beginning of the season, she does. I agree.
Yeah, and stubborn in it. In the episode where they're playing the little finger game.
But that's what I was just going to say.
Stratagema.
In that episode, she's the one that's encouraging Data to play Stratagema and, you know, beat Kilrami. So she has so much growth just when it comes to Data alone. And I think if she'd gotten more seasons, we would have seen more chemistry with her and even more growth.
They were definitely trying to find twofold. They were trying to shove an unlikable character into the show to shake things up, and then trying to have her find chemistry with the characters. She was starting to do that a little bit with Worf towards the end, and obviously she was supposed to be paired with Data as far as that relationship goes. But as far as growth, I guess I meant more like the first couple season TNG characters, when they made the jump to the 3rd season forward, most of them felt decidedly, at least, you know, Beverly, we didn't necessarily get that because we got to see her in season 1, then skipped to season 3. But like specifically Picard in the early days, Riker in the early days are very wooden and stiff and not at all the more charming and settled into their roles people. So I think she might have had she made that jump into season 3, meshed a little bit better with the crew. Or just maybe not, because if she didn't have chemistry with the actors, that may not have come.
Yeah. So then there's all the behind the scenes stuff that we can neither confirm nor deny since we weren't there. But as far as the stuff we can see on screen, I will say she is decisive under pressure. I do think she has blunt honesty. She does not sugarcoat things. She absolutely tells the truth. She does. Caring, I feel similar to what you guys were saying. I feel like it is a detached caring. It is caring, like the principle of caring, right? It's like the oath.
All doctors are caring to some degree.
The biggest caring I can think of is maybe Sarjenka. Was that her name?
Yes.
Okay.
Did she care though?
Yes. Yeah, she was one of the people that really argued for, well, we have to intervene. Prime Directive be damned.
All right.
And even when she was erasing her memory, she was being kind of nice and like, you know, giving her an experience and not really motherly, but she was actually having a nice interaction with the girl and cared about her well-being. So like that's a nice moment, I guess you could point to.
Yeah, I feel like at least I felt this at the time, and not being super up on all the TOS stuff, I do feel like they just took Bones and put him in a dress. I feel like they were just trying to rinse and repeat the same character.
You're not wrong.
And I don't understand why they did that though. Like I get they were trying to do something different than Beverly, but something different. Why did that have to be something exactly the same as what they did before? I'm not really sure. And then I also have a question. Do you think that it was McCoy that set the tone for doctors to be grumpy in future shows? Or do you think that it's some kind of commentary on, wouldn't it be so interesting if the doctor who's supposed to be caring is actually a total jerk? Wouldn't that just flip your lid? I don't know, thoughts?
I feel like that might be a holdover from like Western type shows, the like gruff Sawbones Doctor, which he was kind of named after, unless you watched the J.J. Abrams movies, then he was named after something else. So I think that was more of a relic of the time period. And again, I mean, not that people knew it at the time, but he technically wasn't the first Doctor. In the pilot, that was Dr. Boyce, who was different from him, but also still relied on giving the captain alcohol. So it seems like that's kind of what they were trying to go for with him. But he was such a vital part of a trio of characters in the original series. Whereas once we moved beyond that, it's more of an ensemble show. So her coming in late and trying to build this tripod didn't work at all. She just felt like an outsider and rubbed people the wrong way. Even though she was shown in the show to be the best Doctor. Like they had to call her in for as someone said here, I lost it, the heart transplant of Picard and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And even when I was a kid, like I felt that like, who is this Doctor? Because I had already seen like, seasons 3, 4, I probably even into 5 before I saw much of season 2. And I'm like, well, who is this person? And I didn't understand. And I did not like Pulaski at all in the first run of TNG. But I have grown to love her.
I will probably never be able to say that sentence because she was rude to my favorite character and totally dismissive of him as a being. And I will never forgive that. I hold grudges. But I can honestly say after reviewing the show, she was a really good Doctor. And I do think if my life were on the line, I would feel comfortable going to her. Would I like her? Would I enjoy the experience? Probably not. But do I know that I would get good care and like be alive and well at the end? Absolutely. So it's one of those things where you're like, you're going to do a good job. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to hang out in 10 forward. But if something goes down and my shuttle lands on Neptune or something and I have some gas exposure, you're going to be able to make it right. Oh, are you talking about she was great with Spock and the Medusans? Are you talking about when she was on the show back in TOS as whatever character she was then?
She was two characters, but I can't remember either name.
Oh, look. She was on 2 episodes of TOS. She was in the episode with the aliens who were borrowing the bodies of some of the crew while android bodies were being constructed for them. That sounds creepy AF. Nadia says best part of the child is when everyone was trying to decide what to do about the pregnancy. Troy said she was keeping it, and Picard was like, there you go. End of discussion. Love the support. Mm-hmm. Okay, so PS2 Chipper makes the point that Data did not care. Yes, that's fair. I'm upset on his behalf because he didn't care. And the only person who she could get away with that behavior with was Data, because anybody else would be like, excuse me? But Data's like, doop, 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 doop. Okay, so we got some dissent. Dustin, no way. Bev had growth. We saw her in command. We saw her debate ethical issues. We saw her figure things out. And remember me, she has growth for sure, even in the terrorist episode. Oh, I hate that episode.
All right, I wanted to respond to that when Nadia posted that. It's not that I don't think that she has growth. I think that was always Bev. She's always been that strong-hearted, strong-willed commander. Just because we didn't see it till later, I don't feel like she grew as a character. She feels like the same from season 1 to season 7. That's all I mean. I think she always had that in her. Yeah, it wasn't like she went from being kind of like Troy, how Troy was when she was doing the command training and stuff, or when she was in charge in the episode with the big string, the episode when Picard was in the turbo lift with the kids, Captain Picard Day, whatever that was. Mm-hmm. When Troy was in command, because she was the highest ranking officer on the bridge, she was like, what should I say? Because she was totally like out of her depth. Right, and so you got real growth there. I can't imagine Deanna commanding the ship in season 1. I could imagine Bev commanding the ship in season 1, just because we didn't see it.
Yeah, I agree. Like in that same scenario, if Beverly was there, she would have been like, okay, let's see. What do we do? What do we know? Do we have contact? Like she would have just jumped in there. She was already pretty competent. So we just didn't see them flex those muscles in a way where you're like, wow, she's so different, because she was already a pretty solid character from day one. Mr. Captain 93 says it was weird how she disappeared and never met her again. like she fell down a turbo shaft and just disappeared. Yeah, Nadia has like the best headcanon for what happened to Pulaski. Her theory is that Pulaski married Riker's dad and they went off to live their best life on Risa.
I love that. I want that.
Okay.
I want a comic book series about that.
I was like done and done because I always wanted to know why didn't they tell us what happened to Pulaski? Even just like like how they did at the beginning of season 2 when they were like, "Oh, Beverly's at Starfleet Medical," and that was all they said, and they just moved on. I just wanted one sentence about Pulaski, like maybe she took the place of Starfleet Medical or something, but they were just like, "Oh, hey Beverly." So, anyways, like nothing happened.
It was either a deleted scene or in the novelization they did mention it. I think in First Contact. They said Pulaski designed Geordi's eyes, the implants, but it wasn't on screen.
Get out of They said that in First Contact?
It was a deleted scene or in the novelization. It didn't make it into the final cut, but they were going to. That was the plan.
Wellington Smith said she did fall down an elevator shaft in LA Law. Beverly also played a mentor for Nurse Ogawa. Gates' acting improved, but we're not like measuring the acting skills. But that's always a good point. That's hilarious. Okay, Scrubs, TOS. Roddenberry had intended TOS to be like Wagon Train to the Stars. Did not quite come across that way. What is Wagon Train? Do you just mean like a Western? Or is Wagon Train
he was a writer on the show Wagon Train.
Oh.
For a little bit.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, it was one of the many 60s.
I think that's where like half the cast came from. Like McCoy was in a couple episodes.
Yeah,
Spock was in
almost everybody.
Yeah.
You know, they really recycled actors back then. Like I loved watching crime dramas, like all of them. And one of the ones I love is Perry Mason. And all of these actors are in Perry Mason at one time or another. And you're like, oh, is Spock going to be the killer? Like, it's so much fun.
I love seeing him in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I was going to say, almost everybody's in the Twilight Zone, too.
McCoy was overly emotional on purpose to contrast against Spock. I don't think doctors need to act like McCoy. They just need to be the best doctor they can be. I think I agree with you. And that probably was the best doctor he could be. I always thought it was strange that Pulaski was widely known for her work and her experiments, and Beverly was. Yes, that was the other thing that I was so surprised at in the rewatch, is that they were always quoting like her papers and her, accomplishments. And in that same episode with the unnatural selection with the Oldening virus, when she went to help the people, the only reason they listened to her was because of all her papers that she had. They were like, "Are you the Pulaski, the one who wrote the paper on blah, 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 blah? Okay, fine, we'll work with you." So they never mentioned anything Beverly wrote. The doctor on Voyager was always talking about stuff he was writing, but nobody was there to read it. But he was always like, this should go in the journal. This should totally be published.
Same with Bashir. He was always talking about his papers.
Bashir with an I.
Bashir with an I. Dr. Cox would have been great in Star Trek, seeing as Boimler and Mariner are basically JD and Turk. Yes, heart transplant. That's the one you were talking about.
Well, Kelso was in season 3 of TNG.
Oh, interesting. PS2 Chipper says, but Pulaski did not have sex appeal and Dr. Crusher did. I actually think Pulaski was extremely beautiful. She was just older, but she was very,
an older woman,
like just very beautiful. Like all the scenes when they showed her and they had like the soft edges on her face and stuff. She was just as beautiful. In my opinion, she was just as beautiful in TNG as she was in TOS. So I think they did capture a gorgeous person, and they didn't need to. Like, this is such a Hollywood thing. Everybody doesn't need to be beautiful, but I think she was actually very gorgeous. She was just slightly older, but who cares? Like, if you're going for sex appeal, you need to hit the ranges for the people who are watching. So, yes, Gates McFadden did have better chemistry, but like, interesting. Nadia says, I disagree. Beverly was set up to be a bit cold in season 1. I think about when she met Riker in Encounter at Farpoint. I don't know, but then in the very next episode, she's like all hot and bothered for Picard. So whatever. Nadia says, yes, it could either be a comic book series or a racy romance novel between Pulaski and Kyle Riker. I
would read that.
It was a Western. You guys know a lot about this Western. When it was on, what it was about. I'm impressed.
I've never seen an episode. I only know how it relates to Star Trek.
It's the story of my life, right? I only know how it relates to Star Trek. I don't know anything else. Perhaps Pulaski's background was heavier on research, and that's why she was more detached than Crusher. Oh, maybe. I thought you were going to say that's why she was more published than Crusher, but yeah, maybe. Okay, next on the list is Bashir, who I know nothing about. Other than he's an augment, and that's like a spoiler that I don't even know where I picked that up. Probably just people say it all the time. Okay, where does Bashir land under decisive under pressure, blunt honesty, and caring? Dustin, why don't you start? Actually, Josh, why don't you start?
Okay. See, Bashir is an interesting character because where he starts out is very annoying. And but what we learn later on, like the spoiler you just said, can kind of retroactively be played back as he was acting that way on purpose to hide his nature. So that wasn't intended at the time, of course. So at the very beginning of the show, he's bluntly honest in a very bad way. He's kind of an idiot. He's very like he's like a gifted medical student who graduated almost the top of his class, but he's very like ignorant in the ways of the real world.
That damn preganglionic fiber.
Yeah.
Do you mean like bedside manner wise? Like he just
not even just bedside. Yes, but I mean I'm thinking specifically of like he shows up at Deep Space Nine and he's just like goes up to Curie and he's like out here on the fringes, just practicing this frontier medicine in the middle of nowhere.
Hilarious. And you just see her getting more and more angry, and he's just like, the backwaters with the lowly, the decrepit, the people who have I'm just like waiting for Kira to punch him in the face. So was he like that with everybody? Like, was that just kind of doe-eyed and ignorant?
Like early on, he was a sex pest who was constantly trying to get with Dax. He was very inappropriate in other ways, but he was medically gifted as far as like textbook stuff and like what was known, and like he was well researched. He knew a lot of things, but he wasn't necessarily the greatest at even implementing them. Now, granted, some of that was probably on purpose, as we learned later. Eventually he became decisive under pressure, but again, early on, I feel like he was more hemming and hawing, like, well, this is what the book says, but it's not working. And caring, he cares, but sometimes I feel like his caring crosses ethical lines a lot more than some of the other doctors we've talked about so far. Specifically, like when he just agrees to erasing somebody's memory kind of without their consent because their brother wants to. He's like, okie dokie, sounds good to me. So he's very willing to do
job on short notice. Let's go.
Yeah.
He puts on his glasses and does the flashy thing. And he's like, job well done. PS2 Chipper said he has, what did you just say? He's good under medical pressure, not so much under social pressure.
But there's one thing, there's a specific episode, which is one of probably my favorite Bashir episode, which I had mentioned to you about a disease called The Quickening, which I think is season 4, where it really it shows the cracks in who he is and kind of lays the groundwork for him to actually become a better character. And that's definitely what I would point to as like the best turning point of old and new Bashir. So I would definitely recommend watching that one if you want to see how he works in a medical situation.
I think that might be the best medical episode of Star Trek, period.
I don't know how good the medicine is, which is kind of why I recommended it for a good breakdown, but it definitely hits you in all the right places as far as, you don't know where it's going. It's got Star Trek stuff. It's got character work. It's got a character who's such a haughty egomaniac getting brought down to size. You get that great quote with Dax, I don't know what's more arrogant, thinking that you could come in here and solve the problem in a week, or thinking no one can just because you didn't figure it out yet.
Yeah,
I'm
Charisse,
paraphrasing, but yeah.
as a microbiologist, next time you need a filler week like Macrocosm last week, you should do the quickening.
Yeah, Josh gave me a couple examples from DS9 that are some good like micro-y things, and that's definitely on the list. I think that was the first recommendation.
It's very underrated as far as like people don't mention it in best DS9 episodes, but it's my favorite medical.
Oh, I would. It's amazing.
I'm excited. Do you think I should watch out of order though?
You totally can.
You can.
Before,
you might not get
before
as
he
much.
becomes an augment, so it's
That's
like,
okay. I don't want to wait
just
till
a
I'm in
medical
season.
episode.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait till I'm in season 4. Like, I don't have the patience for that. Great. Okay. So you talked a lot about his character. Where do you think he falls under blunt honesty and caring? It seems like maybe this is a harder question for Bashir because of his character growth. So it's like, are we asking about old Bashir or new Bashir? But let's say like season 7 Bashir.
Season 7 Bashir, I would say, is probably bluntly honest. I'm thinking specifically when he tries to like make the Federate. Well, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but he gives a certain recommendation based on statistical probabilities that's kind of against everything a Starfleet officer should do. So he's definitely willing to state his opinion a lot more once he becomes, whether or not he accepts who he is or is willing to step out of the shadows and be who he is. And I feel like he does care, but his caring isn't necessarily the best type of caring.
Oh, that's interesting. He cares, but not in a way we want him to care.
Correct. Not all the time.
I think just from the chat, like Bashir has the most things people have to say about this character, which is interesting. Okay,
he's
Dustin,
so nuanced, like most of the characters on DS9. Decisive under pressure. Yeah, like almost all of this, like you said, like season 1 Bashir and season 7 Bashir, it is two roads that diverge in a wood. Every series has that one character that needs to be dialed back a little bit after the first couple of episodes, and he is it for DS9. He is really intense at the beginning, but even throughout. So let's start with caring. And define that like, well, he cares, and he cares a lot, but sometimes he cares in a really weird way. Because there are two examples, at least off the top of my head, kind of 3, I guess, with Dax, where, yeah, he's a bit of a sex pest, and he violates that doctor's oath, and like Christopher Lloyd in Clue, who got in trouble for doing what you don't do with your lady patients. And so that's Bashir in a nutshell, and the caring, and why you can only at best give him a 2.5, because he does truly care. Because when you get into his not really but faux boyfriend Garrick in The Wire, where he like sits down with him, and it's kind of an analogy to Detox, and he's with him there for weeks and through all of the craziness. So he cares at times, but also weirdly. So yeah, he can't ever be better than like halfway up the scale at best. Blunt honesty, again, two roads that diverge in a wood. He is not bluntly honest in season 1. He is mostly like a 4 out of 5 by season 7. Decisive under pressure, I think he's always mostly decisive under pressure, like a 3.5, 4 out of 5.
I just want to bring up a couple of the comments because there's a lot about Bashir, and then we'll move on to the next doctor, who is the doctor. DJ Magic says, Bashir, even though he started out as a thirsty simp, hiding genius, to a no holding back confident doctor after a few scuffles with the Dominion. And I think someone else said it too. I lost it, but I put it on screen earlier about the biggest character growth. So that always makes these questions a little bit hard when it's two different versions of the same person, right? To Dustin's point, season 1 and season 7 are like two different dudes. Then it makes this question a little hard, but it also makes the show so much fun to watch because we love that. Bashir, a MD with a character arc, but that's on the writers. Yeah, I mean, it's always the writers who make or break whatever we get to see or enjoy. I'll take Bashir as my primary. I love that. One half of the best bromance in Trek with O'Brien. Oh, so that's interesting because I always hear about Bashir and Garrick more than I hear about Bashir and O'Brien, but maybe there's a couple bromances going.
Well, Bashir and O'Brien are just like, they're like friends. They're like good work, buddies. They go to the bar together, hang out. They're like the type of friends you have.
Life
like,
mates.
Yeah, that like they have their wife. Well, Bashir doesn't have a wife, but O'Brien's married, but they'd still rather spend time with each other. Garrick is kind of this nebulous, like, will they, won't they? We kind of can't go there because of the restrictions of the time period.
Because it's still the 90s and Rick Berman is still in charge.
Two of them are platonic and two of them are friends with benefits or could be off screen. Okay. Bashir might be the best with tactful honesty. That is interesting. Okay, there's a vote from Nadia that should be the next Science-y video is The Quickening. And then PS2 Chipper says, no, do not go out of order. Don't do it. Don't even think about it.
It's really
Walk
fine.
away.
You're not going to miss anything.
The episode itself is fine to watch out of order. Watching his arc, it does make more sense in order, but you could still go back and see it.
There's more watch in order. Yeah, I think so. DS9's been out for a while, so avoiding spoilers is going to be pretty hard. But with every show, and I know DS9 is the long form storytelling, but I'm sure there's plenty that are standalone. I've watched a bunch of standalone episodes that I thought were amazing for different podcasts, where I didn't know all the background and I didn't understand all the nuances. But you can get that, you can get the story, or they'll do it previously on if there's anything you really need to know.
Like the only thing you probably need to know for that is like who the Dominion are because they're mentioned.
That's what I was just going to say.
Oh, DJ Magic says, I think I'm in season 4 now, so I'll keep an eye out for some good character growth. Definitely has the ability to be brutally honest, which I appreciate.
But I think he goes over. Like originally, he's not brutally honest. He's hiding things. But then he gets the ability to be more willing. But then he gets so cocky and self-assured that he will keep things secret because he knows what's best. So he kind of goes well over the ledge.
That's a really good point.
This is probably, well, I don't know anything about Phlox either, but from our discussion so far, it sounds like Bashir is easily the most nuanced doctor, the most maybe human-like doctor. I'm going to take the doctor off for a second. The most human-like doctor in the sense that he has facets to him and like different things going on and he grows and he changes versus Bones, who was pretty cut and dry, and Pulaski, who was pretty much a stamp. And we didn't have more time with her to change. That's true. But for the one season she was in, we kind of get the gist of her. Beverly is the same amazing, confident woman in season 1 that she is in season 7. Sounds like Bashir is the most different. I do think the Doctor has a huge character growth as well, but it's just different, right? It's just like it's a different thing, and it's less maybe like peeling off layers of the onion, and it's more like adding things in, right? Like just adding in a little bit of this, taking a little bit of that. It's more modifying. But let's get into that. Next on the list is the Doctor. Is the Doctor decisive under pressure? Does he have blunt honesty? And is there caring? And once again, season 1 Doctor, I think, is pretty different from season 7 Doctor. And he changes long before that. I think probably by the end of season 1, both the Doctor and Neelix change a lot by the end of season 1. To your point, Josh, of like dialing back characters, these were 2 where they were like, I think it was like episode 3 when they just totally flipped Neelix's character completely. When he went from being such grouch to being like, I want to be the morale officer and I want to be helpful and I want to stop complaining about everything. And I was like, wow, they noticed that very quickly that this was not working for people. It took the Doctor a little while longer, but in season 1, you have Kes being like, Doctor, stop being a dick. And then in season 7, you've got the Doctor being like, 7, stop being a dick. So it's like full circle. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the Doctor?
Dustin?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail there. That he is very faceted. Season 1, season 7. Out of 5 though, I've got to give him like 4s in almost all of these, except maybe like 3 in like decisive under pressure. He's very good all around, but decisive under pressure, where we see that literally his programming has a flaw where if he's has to pick between 2 people that have equal amounts of triage damage, he just can't do it. That 50-50 split it's not good for a hologram. So decisive under pressure most of the time, but not always, and that's a huge problem for a doctor. Especially a holographic one that then is susceptible to recursive logic loops. Blunt honesty. That's again another like season 1 and season 7 thing. Blunt honesty in season 1, he is a 5 out of 5. He will tell you exactly what the down the lane diagnosis is or problem is. But by season 7, at times he'll even lie. So no, he's not completely blunt honest by the end. He's more rounded. But that also then plays into his caring, which, season 1, he is probably the least caring doctor out of everybody, including Pulaski. He's like a 1. But by season 7, he truly cares about all of those people that he has been on Voyager with for 7 years. So for just a computer program that could then incorporate new data into it, by then he is like a 5 out of 5. So he's really interesting. It's season to season.
And he becomes a godfather in season 7. So, I mean, that's crazy, right? For them to be like, of everybody on the ship, you are the one who I want to be in my child's life. Like, that's a major, that is like a major honor. I have 2 godchildren, and the first time I was asked, I burst into tears. It was just such a meaningful thing. And I know sometimes godparents doesn't really mean anything. You're just like, oh, that's your godparent. But like for the parents to be like, you are the one that I want to like be an influence in my child's life. It's just, I don't know. It's a really massive honor. So that to me speaks to the doctor's growth, because who in their right mind would entrust anything to season 1 doctor? Like, I mean, he'll fix you up. Maybe if he's not too annoyed with you at the moment, but I feel like
not
he's even
some new Delta Quadrant disease that has never had anything like it seen before.
Like, oh, you've got 4 hours to live. Anyways, can you deactivate my program before you leave? Bye.
Good luck. Hope they space you at the end so I don't have to clean it up. Josh, your thoughts?
So I have a lot of thoughts on this, but one thing I guess that is interesting and different. So granted, Bashir was an augmented human, but we had Bones that was a human, Pulaski, Crusher, they're human. And so all of our doctors prior to this have been human, or at least, close enough. He is the first completely different. He's not even like an alien. He's a different form of being completely.
Different life form. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of these things here, kind of piggybacking on the point that Dustin had, that he like has an actual error in his program or fault in his program that doesn't allow him to do things. All of these things technically, so regardless of his evolution throughout the series, with the flip of a switch can be changed. So somebody could just decide to, like we saw with Equinox, just delete his carrying protocols or change his decisive under pressure ability. So he can go through a lot of growth, but he doesn't necessarily have 100% certainty that somebody is not just going to come along and change it. And I know this is sci-fi, so any person could probably be taken over by a parasite or psychic shenanigans or something. So maybe it's not as exclusive to him, but he is definitely an interesting type of being who basically goes from, in season 1, the first couple of episodes, he doesn't even see himself as anything more than just this emergency medical program. He's just like a compilation of he's Chat GPT with medical knowledge, who's like,
with a laser scalpel.
Are you done asking me questions now? I kind of just want to be shut off. Thank you very much. To the point where eventually he started. Yes. Then he starts getting, specifically, I think this was a good use of her character outside of Neelix's shenanigans. Kes started giving him this seed or this germ of you are somebody that matters. You are an individual. You are a person that, regardless of all this stuff, you are here now. And he started believing that, and he started wanting more and more things. So he was kind of growing from a book at the start into getting a personality, getting, I don't know if this was the intention, but like he starts off as somebody, no emotions, no anything other than just pure dead information and the ability
he had
to
emotions. His emotions were irritation.
Well, his emotions were pre-programmed Zimmerman leftovers, I guess. Yeah. So he wasn't, he was just kind of a copy of somebody that exists, I suppose. But once he started realizing he was his own person, he started implementing things both by contact with people and things he wanted himself. Like he said, I like music. I'm going to start getting into that. And by adding these other things like a real person, he's growing and kind of cross-referencing like humor and, this thing and this thing kind of go together and develop a new thing. So his decisive under pressure, maybe early on, he would be more willing to make a life or death situation like if it was presented to him because he didn't care, but he grows to a certain point to like, I don't want to make this call anymore, to eventually overcoming that and being more willing to make something like in, what was that episode? Not Lifeline. What was the one where he gets sold to the like, consortium or whatever?
Yeah, he gets sold to that hospital. It's called, I don't.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Critical care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's kind of, I see, not necessarily the end of his journey, but that definitely showcases who and what he's become on this journey. He is blunt and honest at the beginning and doesn't give a crap about it because it's just, there's a thing that's happening and he just recognizes it. There's no filter in there to where he's still blunt and honest later, but he is willing to couch things and care about the people and want them to feel the best and say, yes, you've got this deadly thing that's going to kill you in 3 hours, but God damn it, I'm going to do my best to get you out of this. And it's not over. Don't give up. And he's even willing at some points to go outside of his programming where like Chakotay's mind is lost. And he's like, here, put up a spirit wheel or whatever it was called. Why not? It couldn't hurt. So he definitely...
Which is so funny that he was okay with that because he was never okay with mind melding. He was like, this is the same as using leeches. And it's like mind melding has a lot more scientific evidence than the dream wheel, like just of what you've seen on the ship so far. But yeah, anyways.
For all the times we've been told that mind melding is going to hurt somebody, I want more episodes where somebody actually gets hurt from a mind meld. I mean, that seems terrible, but Star Trek has told us that, and it's not just the Doctor. Bones said that all the time about Spock, anytime that was the choice to go for.
That should have been an entire Lower Decks episode. They just go to a planet that's just filled with mind meld errors.
Yeah, with all these people, it's like a big hospital planet, but instead of for the freaks, like where the dog went, it's for everybody who's been like affected by the mind meld. See, this is why we need more Lower Decks, because there's so much more content that we need. Like, they were not done yet. We have so much more to talk about. Yeah, the Doctor was too honest at times. The Doctor was indecisive so badly a few times. That is true, and that I totally agree with the times mentioned. I'm also thinking of the episode where the ship was duplicated and Harry and Naomi Wildman died on, ship A, and then they jumped over to ship B or whatever. I think it was that episode where the Doctor is in a Jeffries tube and they're like clearing out deck 3 or whatever. And then there's like some people running and he's looking at them and the door's open and they're like, wait for us. And he's like, and then he closes the door and then it like blows up and they all get sucked out. Oh, that was a different one. Okay. Well, whatever episode that happened in.
I think that was the Year of Hell. But
it might have been.
I know it was later because he didn't have the mobile emitter when Harry got swapped.
That's right.
I wonder if that was in season 1 then when Harry got swapped. Was that very... No, because Infant Wildman was born. I don't know. I don't know.
But that's
In
another
any
good
case-
point with the mobile emitter we haven't really discussed yet either.
I love the Doctor. I think he's amazing. I do think he is not as decisive. And I think PS2 Chipper said this. You would think for a computer, he would be quicker under pressure. You would think that because he's a program, he would be even more decisive than all the other people put together. But to your points, is he was able to change said program. He was able to develop it and change it. And as he changed it, that changed some of those decisions that he could make. And now he has moral issues, which maybe he never had before. It was never intended to have because he was supposed to be a supplement. He wasn't even supposed to be making these calls.
What was his original runtime? He was only allowed maybe a max of 100 hours or something originally.
I don't know, but I do remember him saying he was supposed to be a supplement. So he was supposed to be like the doctor's aide. Like he was just supposed to be like another pair of hands or something. He wasn't supposed to. Go ahead.
The Zimmerman diagnostic program, when they had to run that and graft it into him. He had asked, and it was like he'd been running for thousands of hours, and he's like, of course he's going to malfunction. He wasn't designed for that. And I think that was 2,000 hours or something.
Yeah, his whole program started to tear apart or whatever, and they had to graft it on. Kess was the only one who could save the day because everybody else was busy with saving the ship or whatever, because he had run too much. So that's a really fair point, that all of even his shortcomings can actually be seen as triumphs, because this is him building himself as an actual person. This isn't from his upbringing or childhood or society or anything else. This is him literally being like, do I want to be like this or do I want to be like this? Let's try that. Oh, that's weird. Okay, let's add this. Let's add that. And literally deciding how he was going to grow as a person, which is super interesting. I love that we're back to McCoy. Great arc from 0 F's given to 5 at the end. Had issues collaborating with the genocidal Cardassian doctor. Yeah, there were some moral issues, like the fact that, where did his moral subroutine come from? Was it from Zimmerman or was it mostly from him? I don't know.
It wasn't Zimmerman. I mean, maybe the basis. Maybe.
Yes, he gave 7 lessons on humanity.
He also took over a body that one time.
Hello. He also took over Seven's body that one time, and that was not cool. He made a good command hologram during a crisis. Okay, well, he was the only person on the ship, so sure, he was the best that the ship had. But if you remember that episode, I think it was Tinker, Tenor, Dr. Spy or whatever, when he was pretending to be the command hologram, he was the worst.
Fire the photonic cannon.
That was fun, but they did bring it back once more, and I think Workforce.
Yeah, and it worked. Yep.
That worked better there, yeah.
Because he was the only one left, I think, because everyone else had got kidnapped for the Workforce.
Oh yeah, then Chakotay showed up. He's like, "Oh, I can't be captain anymore."
I know, he was like, even when there's a EMH in charge, I still can't be captain. Mr. Captain says T'Pol got hurt from a mind meld in Enterprise. So I guess it happened.
And I guess after I saw this quote, I was like, oh yeah, and then I guess Picard took Sarek's pain from a mind meld on purpose in Sarek.
Oh, see, Wellington says it's because it was non-consensual. That's interesting. That makes sense. But they do always on the show say it doing it at all is so dangerous. Even if everything goes right, if you even think about doing it, something terrible could go wrong, and nothing terrible ever does, really.
Unless you're Janeway, you're just Tuvok, mind meld.
Mind meld. Chop, chop. Okay, so that brings us to the last doctor on the list, another doctor that I know nothing about, and that is Phlox from Enterprise. So where does Phlox land? First of all, no, I'm just going to go with questions. Where does Phlox land with decisive under pressure, blunt honesty, and caring?
He definitely falls on the side of some of our talks here where he's more bluntly honest from his perspective. So as I was talking about, the doctor was the first non-human we've had. This is the first truly non-human, but also he's not Starfleet, he's not Federation. He does not have, I'm sure they have something equivalent on their planet, but he is the first one not bound by the Hippocratic Oath. He has an alien set of values and an alien set of, ways of doing things, research that does not have anything to do with human medical research. That's very, for the purposes of the show, it's by and large done with like animals and plants and stuff, like just weird exotic things that look odd to us as humans in the current age. But he's very much outside the box in the way that things are done, and that isn't necessarily supposed to be a bad thing, even when to us it feels like it is, because this is supposed to be an integration of, you know, humans getting out to a universe they know nothing about and kind of fumbling around, and he's providing a differing set of ways to do things, to the point where, you know, we have the whole genocide episode where he's making choices. I mean, Archer's making choices too, but he's irrelevant for this conversation. So the way that he cares is not necessarily the way that we would think somebody should care. So he does have a caring, but I don't necessarily think I would feel comfortable, at least definitely not early on, being cared for by him. Now, I do think he would find some kooky way to cure me by putting like a banana slug down my throat or something and hitting me with some weird theta radiation. There you go. And decisive under pressure, yes, but I don't think nearly as much as some of the other ones. And he definitely doesn't have as much of the non-doctor skills as some of the other ones we've talked about. Like the Doctor obviously became better at other things. Bashir became better at other things. Crusher was better at other things. He seems like he's a doctor and maybe not able to do much else ship related.
Yeah, it seems like he got lucky in the one where he had to be the only one awake while the rest of the crew had to go into stasis.
They did that one again?
Mm-hmm.
How many times are they going to do that episode?
That one in Voyager. It's just
they did that
like
one
that,
in
but
TNG
it's with Phlox. Honestly, I think that it might actually be better in this one. Both are pretty good, to be honest. They're both really close as far as how good they are. Yeah, for once, Josh, I've actually got to disagree with you. I want to give him a 5 in every single category. I don't know if that's true, but let's run through this. Decisive under pressure. Yeah, I don't remember a time when he's ever, you know, there's times when he doesn't know the answer, but he's always decisive in what he wants to go with for a treatment, whether it's right or wrong. And even I think he knows that, like, he's on the bleeding edge of medicine in this like early kind of universal confrontations with other races. Blunt honesty. Yeah. And he's always got a smile on his face when he's doing it. You know, like he knows his science and he won't sugarcoat it, but he will tell you in an awful nice way that this is the problem and this is what you're going to deal with.
Sort of condescendingly sometimes too. Like
that's
like he's
true.
talking to a child, which he kind of sort of is.
Not wrong. Caring, though, definitely a 5. Like, he just seems to care about everyone and everything. Though at the same time, then you get into these ethics of literally the episode ethics and, like, using these sentient beings, even if they're lower life forms, to save others and to do the different jobs rather than just waving a light over somebody like we typically see in Star Trek, especially when in Similitude, where he grows like a whole new trip, and then that's why I think that is a whole ethical debate in itself.
He's definitely caring, but I think purposefully they made it a slightly non-human norm type of way. So
as Randall says, optimism, Captain. Yeah, that's even that first episode with the super smile. That perfectly describes Phlox. He's the most optimistic character maybe in all of Star Trek. I love Phlox, and it's really hard as a toss-up between him and the Doctor for, like, who is the best Doctor?
when I Googled images for all of this, when I Googled images for Phlox, like the first 20 or 30 just said Phlox smile. Like that was all the images were over and over and over and over. And I was like, okay,
the Denobulans have this thing that it's called the super smile, where they're like,
yeah, it showed this weird stretchy smile, and I was like, is that like, did somebody make that? I didn't know that was from the show. I didn't know what was going on, but I was just like, okay, seems like a happy
They only
dude.
do it twice, but it's a thing.
You can puff out
Apparently
his face
those
too.
2 times were very meaningful to the fans because they were captured and reproduced like 100 times. It's like the saucer separation, right? It only happens like twice, but we swear it happens every single season because it's just so like impactful. The Phlox actor is a nice dude. That's good to know. Phlox is so sweet and such a delightful character. Phlox is the most normal person that John Billingsley gets to play, which is funny. The most normal person is like a total alien non-person. That's pretty funny. Phlox also does way more doctoring than Crusher, and it's written that way. I mean, it sounds like it. It sounds like from what Dustin said, he stays in his lane. Like that's what it sounds like. Phlox was super decisive when he was infected with nanoprobes, trying not to give away spoilers. You're trying not to give away spoilers for Enterprise too? Whew, you're going to have a job, girl. Extremely competent and probably the most creative doctor, a gentle, caring soul, but not with quick decisions. He's much more thoughtful. Okay, so that is our list. That's our lineup. We've gone over everything, said our thoughts, the ups and downs, our opinions of this list of part 1 of the doctors. Who would you want to be your doctor? To somebody's point, who would you want to be your primary? Who is the person that you want to be either your primary or your specialist on this entire list? And the list was Phlox, the Doctor, Bashir, Pulaski, Crusher, and McCoy.
I was already having trouble choosing one, but then as my specialist, I mean, my specialist has got to be either Pulaski, because we know she literally is a specialist in a few different fields. Like, she gets called up when the heart surgeries go wrong, and she knows she's done more of the eye surgeries. Oh, because I want to give it to, like, the doctor nicely, it's going to be Pulaski. But at the same time, as like a primary, I think I might want Bashir. These are hard questions. I don't like this. This isn't fair anymore.
Like, I think you mean
who's the best doctor. At least I can narrow it down between like Phlox and the doctor. But who's my primary? Probably Bashir. I feel like he's gonna understand more of the things all around. He's not necessarily the best in all the categories, especially the weird caring. You're gonna have to come back to me. I don't like this game anymore.
This is after you told us to pick our favorite episode or favorite of like all of Trek or whatever you asked us that we can possibly do. Okay.
Best Trek episode, quick. So one thing I guess I would like to say about Phlox again, which is the same everyone in Enterprise. When we're doing lists like this, I mean, even TOS to a certain extent, but everyone in Enterprise is, for the most part, dealing with the first time something has happened. So, like, Phlox probably should get a little extra credit on that just from, the first time they're dealing with a transporter accident, actually accidentally beaming something into your body. The first time they're encountering, all of these things that anyone in the rest of Star Trek has probably seen a million times and have protocols for. So, outside of the Doctor, he's probably the one dealing with the most newfangled things that it's just skin of his teeth trying to figure it out. But I still think that if I was going to choose, I guess I have 3 ways to answer this. Well, 4 if I just split the difference and say Dr. Solar. But
Dr. Solar was not on the list, nor was Alt Universe Nurse Agawa, who was also a doctor, also not on the list.
the 2 episodes with Dr. Mbenga from TOS. I don't know. I guess I would say, all right, so I think the Doctor, he's generally been my answer, and I'm probably going to stick with the doctor. I will definitely agree with Pulaski if I need some very specialized thing and she can fly in to help with it, do the operation, and then peace out, and I don't have to like deal with her on an ongoing basis day to day. But also just if I want to feel reassured and comfortable, like if I just have a minor cough or something, then probably Beverly would make me feel the best. But as far as primary treatment, I guess the doctor.
So the doctor's your primary, Pulaski's your specialist, and Beverly is the substitution doctor when your doctors are out of town.
I was like, hey, I don't know. Should I take Robitussin or should I take this other thing?
Is Crusher your teledoc? She's the one who just kind of call and you're like, can you just give me a prescription for something? I'm not feeling good, like that.
Oh, hey, how's it going? You want to watch me dance for a minute? Just, here's some chicken soup and go about your business.
Ira Graves is my teledoc. No, other than that, I have to answer this in 4 ways. I cannot just tell you a PCP and a specialist. My PCP is Bashir. He's my primary. My specialist is Pulaski. My second opinion doctor is Phlox. 100%. If I'm not satisfied with what Bashir tells me, I am going to Phlox to get a second opinion. But best overall, all around, God, it is so close between Phlox and the doctor, and I have to give it to the doctor. Sorry, I can't simplify it to just 2. This is what I said when we got in here, and I was like, this is going to be harder than First Officers by like a lot.
Yeah, First Officers was pretty, after we had the discussion, it was pretty clear. It was like, oh, okay, well, these ones. But before the discussion was like, I don't know, it could be between a couple. And then after discussions, it was pretty clear. You guys are really funny. I think for me, it's an unfair question always whenever I ask myself these questions because I'm only familiar with like half the doctors. So I can't even give a full proper answer. I can only answer between the doctors that I know. However, from our discussion, Bashir sounds like the most interesting character, if that's what we were saying. It sounds like he has like a lot of facets and a lot of growth. And it sounds like he does doctoring, but he also does so much more that just adds layers to that character. And I think it sounds like he's more fun to watch. It sounds like Phlox is very much doing that kind of frontier medicine because, to Josh's point, it's first of this and first of that. Similar to the doctor, a lot of stuff is first because they're in the Delta Quadrant. So they have to be really innovative and creative, which I think is always a cool thing to see in a doctor, to see them shine. That's where the specialist comes in, is when you're seeing things for the first time and you figure out a way to make it work. So of the doctors that I am familiar with, definitely the doctor is going to be my specialist. I think I agree with Nadia. The doctor has access to like every single database and could just like access one if he doesn't have it. Like he could just be like, oh, let me just doop, doop, doop. Okay, I got it. And I feel like he knows like all of human history's medical issues and can innovate all these future medical issues. So it has to be the doctor. He's always going to find a solution. So, and he's got to be on my list somewhere. As my primary, I want to pick Beverly because she's really nice. And if I only see my primary like, a couple times a year, and the whole point of seeing the primary is to like take your blood pressure, look in your eyes, hit your knee with the little thing, and then they like tell you to go to the specialist for any kind of issues. I feel like that would kind of be the best of both worlds for me. So the few times that I see the primary and they're just like, I don't know what this is, I'm going to send you over to the doctor. I'll be like, cool, thanks. I think I would just feel really like loved and taken care of for those moments. And then anything crazy, like that crazy sickness I had that I was talking about before, the doctor could have solved that. The doctor could have figured that out. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with my limited knowledge of all of these things. Okay, so if you have not said yet, or if you're watching on the replay, let me know in the comments, who is your favorite doctor? Who would be your primary doctor, like the person you go to for just like keeping track of your issues? And then who would be your specialist? Let me know. And join us next week for part 2 of this conversation, where we are going to be talking about the doctors of new Trek. I want to thank you, Josh and Dustin, for being a part of this conversation. And thank you to everybody who's participating live and everybody who's leaving comments on the replay. I'll see you all next week. Bye.
Colin.